Namaskar दोस्तों, welcome to channel Toxicology on board. Today in this video we'll be discussing another DABT topic that is regulatory standards with respect to soil. So till now previous videos we have covered about air also, then food. Now we are discussing soil, which are the regulatory agencies in the US who are going to control the regulation with respect to soil. Before that, we'll see two questions which were given in the ABT recertification question papers year 2000 to 2009. So bioconcentration factor refers to. So we need to see what is the exactly definition of bioconcentration factor. So we have options: the catabolism of pollutants by the soil bacteria, the ratio of the concentration of a substance within an organism to that in the surrounding medium, usually water, the ability of a substance to concentrate up a food chain, which is the definition of biomagnification. The measured concentration of a substance in an organism tissue. Actually, the measured concentration is actually absorption, not this one. So the right answer will be in the green text, that is the ratio of the concentration of the substance within an organism in that surrounding medium. The surrounding medium might be soil also, usually, but this is water, particularly with respect to fish or aquatic organisms like that. So we'll see what is the important definitions we need to remember with respect to bio accumulation factor, bio concentration factor, biomagnification factor. And I would also request you to remember about the examples for each type of this thing. Bioaccumulation factor is the ratio of the test chemical, whatever the chemical, whichever you are testing, of that concentration in a test organism or tissue to that in the surrounding medium when all potential uptake mechanisms are involved. Means the exposure is through inhalation, through oral, through dermal, all the routes. Okay, that is about the bioaccumulation factor. Coming to bioconcentration factor, here we are seeing the exact definition is a specific case of BAF. So in this bioaccumulation factor, one of the example or specific case is bioconcentration factor. Okay, when uptake is only from surrounding medium. If for example fish is there or certain zooplankton or phytoplankton is there in the water body in the sea or then the exposure is through only one specific exposure route. So that is the reason bioconcentration factor. Coming to accumulation is from various sources. It can be exposure through air, water, or soil. Okay. Coming to biomagnification factor, it is the ratio of the test chemical concentration in the tissues of an organism to that in the organism's prey. Okay. Actually, biomagnification factor you have to remember with respect to bioaccumulation across the food chain means the concentration of that particular chemical over the food chain, it keeps on increasing. For this best example is methyl mercury, the incident millimeter bay disease. So you read it, which is there in the ABT brochure also, this particular thing where methyl mercury started accumulating over the food chain, like from small fish to large fish to human. Okay. Then next we'll see what is the second question. The second question is which of the following is the single greatest contributor degradation of surface water quality? So the right answer will be soil erosion. Soil erosion is the biggest one, greater contribution which is going to degrade your surface water quality. And what are the other options? We'll see contaminated industrial waste discharged directly into the waterways, burial solid waste, burial liquid waste. These are all comes under disposal of your waste and well as acid rain. Acid rain will come under sulfur dioxide emission into the atmosphere. Okay. So let's see what we can learn. As I told you, we are going to discuss US regulatory body in which we have covered air, we have covered food. Now we are discussing soil. Okay, and most of the discussions I have taken it from toxicological risk assessment. One practical book will be there from that only. So the US National Environmental Policy Act of 1969. Okay, required careful analysis of consequence of any federally funded project. Okay, any project is there which is funded by federal, that will come under National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA. Okay, the Resource Conservation Recovery Act, RCRA of 1976, it will establish the guidelines how to handling, transport, hauling of this hazardous material such as required in cleanup of soil contaminants. So main work of RCRA, that is the Resource Conservation Recovery Act, is to take care of this hazardous waste generator, which is the particular company which is generating this particular hazardous waste. Hazardous waste transportation, recycling, disposal, treatment, all these things RCRA will regulate, okay, under 1976 Act. Then the Comprehensive Environmental Response Compensation and Liability Act, which is commonly called as CERCLA. Another name for CERCLA is Superfund. It was established in 1980, and it was the first time they have introduced a strict law against the legal liability for soil contamination. So whoever the responsible persons are there who is causing the soil contamination for their, so legal liability is there. Under this enforcement, this law, we can this federal regulatory body can um, question that particular individual or organization or pharmaceutical or whatever the company. CERCLA stimulated identification and cleanup of thousands of contaminated land sites. For example, there is a mining site, assume, and once the mining work is done, a lot of the waste which is there, that particular area will be abandoned. You have to understand, nobody is going to spend some money in handling the waste material, because in order to these factories or these manufacturers, in order to make more profit, they spend less amount of funding on handling of this disposal of this waste product. For this reason, if there is an abandoned site, for example, there is certain factory which is under loss, and that factory will be abandoned. Okay, so the chemicals which are there, the waste material which is spilled in the surrounding area, it will start slowly leaching into the nearby soil as well as water and contaminating that particular area. Such kind of area, under this US National Environmental Policy Act, they will identify such sites by doing lot of sampling, soil sampling, water sampling, like that. Okay, they will identify cleanup of thousands of contaminated land sites, consequently raised awareness of property buyers, okay, and sellers to make soil contamination a focal issue of land use and management practices. So it is also the responsibility of the property buyers as well as sellers. Okay, for example, there was a factory in 1940s or 1950, but today in early 2000, somebody is buying that particular land and property who is not at all aware of the thing which has happened 30 to 40 years. But the people right now who are living, because we have seen on those areas, new communities, new ecosystem will be developed, which will be subjected to that particular exposure to those chemicals which were spilled in that particular area. So it is the responsibility of the buyers and sellers also to make sure and make it as a focal issue and land use and management of practices. Okay, so if you see a typical flow diagram of this uh, circular, no, first it will identify the site, then preliminary assessment will be there. They will take the soil sample or water sample, site inspection, okay, then remedial investigation, then feasibility studies, field studies they will be doing, proposed plan, record and decision, project completion, and if there is further like remedial design if necessary, uh, uh, if it is not been covered under first revision or second revision, so they will take remedial design and remedial action, then the project will be completed. Then that particular area will be delisted from this national priority list. We'll see what is this NPL also in the next slide. So the Comprehensive Environmental Response Compensation Liability Act, CERCLA, commonly known as Superfund. So in the question, if you get CERCLA or Superfund, both are same only. Okay, enacted by the U.S. Congress in 11th December 1980. CERCLA created a tax. So how to handle this particular sites? Who is going to give the funding? Who is going to give the financial need in order to clean that particular site? So they created a tax. So how to regulate that, we'll see. So they created a tax on the chemical and petroleum industries and provided a broad federal authority. So they have given the power to the federal agency to respond directly to releases or threatened releases of these hazardous substances that may endanger public health and environmental. So under federal law, these officers, they have the authority. They can directly charge the factories or the manufacturing facility or to the owners. They can impose taxes on them. They can collect those taxes, and that taxes will be put it into a fund, into a trust. Over 5 years, 1.6 billion was collected, and the tax went to a trust. Okay, this trust will again delocate the whatever the fund is there. Trust fund for cleaning up abandoned or uncontrolled hazardous waste sites. Okay, CERCLA established the prohibitions and requirements concerning closed and abandoned hazardous waste sites. As I told you, certain sites will be abandoned by the owners because of the laws or like that. Okay, provided for liability of persons responsible. So under this federal law, CERCLA, these people officers will have the authority. They can go and question them. They can go and challenge them. Okay, the persons who are liable for release of this hazardous waste at these sites, and established a trust fund to provide for cleanup when no responsible party could be identified. There are certain abandoned sites where you cannot trace back who was the responsible for person in order to contaminate that particular area. In such a case, from the trust, that same amount will be utilized for your cleanup of that particular site. So like this, they will do some surveys. They will identify the area. Earlier this was a landfill area, but now today a new community or new people are staying in this area. So once they do the soil or water sampling, and they will identify that some certain chemicals are leaching into this particular area, first I think they will identify this site and they will evacuate the people from this region. Then this circular people will come and clean these sites, and then this site will be delisted from the NPL site. And those who people are working on PubChem, that is the database, you can go and check in these sections they will be giving. For example, I have given an example here with respect to xylene. So under this, no, you can see these sections will be there. Circular reportable quantities. For example, for xylene, they have given under Resource Conservation Recovery Act, they were given how to handle xylene. What are the sites are there, if there is any spillage, is there some accident is there, so that information you can get in pubchem database here. So next time when you're browsing through pubchem, you read these sections. Some people might already be reading, but to those people who want to learn about these kind of under safety and hazardous, that particular sections you can read. Then, in continuation of the Superfund process only, see this is the pathway how they will identify the site. NPL listing will be there. Then they will by following all these steps, risk management, risk strategies, they will decide that okay, this particular site is comes under Superfund site. So we have two types of kinds of response actions this circular will do. One is short-term removal, and second one is long-term remedial response action. Under short-term removal, no, where actions may be taken to address release or threatened releases required prompt response. In short-term, immediate action. There is an immediate threat, so immediate. For example, Sevosa disaster was there, or Chernobyl, USA. That not USA, Chernobyl in Russia, that that uranium disaster, what is it, that nuclear power plant disaster was there. So those actions need to be taken because the nuclear waste, the half life of that particular uranium isotopes is around thousands of years is there. So they will make the perimeter, this many kilometers of area is there, then this much inches of soil they will remove from that particular area. So a lot of steps will be there. So that is short term measures. So if there is an immediate impact, first evacuate that facility. Second way is long-term remedial response action that permanently and significantly reduces the danger associated with the release or threats of release of hazardous substances that are serious but not immediately life-threatening. Nowadays, no, we are like if you see last 2 to 3 years publication, 2025 or 2026, PFAS, but this polyfluoroalkylate sulfonates is there, no. So a lot of regulations are being imposed by US FDA. PFAS also having dangerous threats with respect to this land contaminations, you can say, or biopersistence of endocrine disruptor. These kind of adverse effects are associated with PFAS. Then these actions can be conducted only at sites which are listed by US EPA National Priority List. As I told you, no, they will identify. This yellow color regions are NPL sites. These are the ones green color which are being deleted from this NPL sites once the cleanup program is done. and the orange or red one is proposed NPL site. Still some kind of sampling is taking place, then they will decide whether these to be included in NPL site or not. Okay. CERCLA also enables the revision of this US National Contingency Plan. So everything has to be done under this NCP. The NCP provide the guidelines how to do the sampling, how to establish that limits, the procedures needed to respond to releases, and threatened releases of the hazardous substances, pollutants, and contaminants. Not only the one which has already been in, if we know that in certain areas, because of certain manufacturing facility, if there is a threat to that particular area, they can impose the restrictions before even release of this hazardous. Because of the potential threat also, under CERCLA, these people have the authority to charge to this particular companies. NCP also established the NPL, that is National Priority List. Another role of this NCP, CERCLA was amended by the Superfund Amendments and Reauthorization Act on 17th October 1986. So you have to read about CERCLA. CERCLA another synonym is Superfund. You also remember, even in your question, SARA comes from Superfund Amendments and Reauthorization Act. Okay. So next we'll see under the Superfund program only. The goal of the Superfund program is to clean up these uncontrolled hazardous waste sites that poses unacceptable risk to the human health as well as to the environment in a manner that it restores these sites. Okay, cleanup of these sites. Before, for example, Elizabeth Mine Superfund, it was this particular mining area was under Superfund. This was before and after, so they will bring back to normalization of this particular area. So unacceptable, restore these sites to use appropriate by this nearby communities. The program was authorized under CERCLA Act of 1980. The soil screening guidance technical background document provide the technical background for the development of methodologies described in the soil screening guidance. So there will be different sampling technique will be there, user guides along with the additional information useful for soil screening. So under ecotoxicology, environmental toxicology, this all will come under this is the role of that type of risk assessment toxicologist. Together, these documents define the framework for methodology to develop soil screening levels. Okay, at what layer, uppermost layer, lowermost layer, for chemicals commonly found at superfund sites. SSLs, that is soil screening levels, are risk-based concentrations. Again, this is very, very important. Again, the importance role of this toxicologist is coming. You have to make concentrations. You have to derive this concentration, risk-based concentrations derived from the standard equations combining exposure information assumptions with US EPA toxicity site. For example, I'll say there is what dioxin is there, 1,4-dioxin, or this particular chemical is there. For that, what these people as a toxicology, you need to collect the data, all type of toxicology studies which are available. Then you have to identify an OL. Again, applying safety factors, you will derive the concentration. For the ingestion, dermal, and inhalation pathways, toxicity criteria are used to define an acceptable level of the contamination in the soil. As I told you in earlier, you can see with respect to DDT also. Okay, DDT, because of its biopersistent or bioaccumulation in the either in the soil or in the nearby water bodies, or biomagnified into the reptiles, their egg became thin. Okay, so a 1 in million, that is 10 to the power of 6 individual excess cancer risk for carcinogens, a hazard coefficient of 1 for non-carcinogens. So they will derive HQ. How this HQ is derived means US EPA will derive RFT for oral, RFC for inhalation. And how you are deriving Noel by dividing it with uncertainty factors. This Noel, either you are getting it from the animal study, or you are putting it in the software and you are getting BMDL or BMD10, or you're getting it from epidemiological or clinical studies. You will have a safe dose. LOEL or NOEL will be there. Okay, so from that you will derive hazard coefficient. Hazard coefficient, how you are getting, you're dividing the exposure. The exposure might be oral route, inhalation route, or dermal route divided by RFT. Okay, so once again we'll see what is the definition. HQ is there in your syllabus. Hazard coefficient, hazard index is there in the ABT brochure. You can go back and check. Hazard coefficient is defined as the ratio of an exposure estimate over the reference dose or concentration. How this exposure is SCD, systemic exposure or local exposure, both, because here inhalation, dermal and oral, all three different routes of exposure is there. You are dividing it with RFD or RFC, oral reference dose or inhalation reference concentration. Okay. So when coming to like this, there HQ greater than 1, HQ less than 1, inference will be there. That also you try to read. And also read about hazard index. Hazard index is nothing but whenever you are exposed to, see, if you are in a certain place, you are not just getting exposed with a single chemical molecule. Always in the real time scenario, you will be exposed to a mixture of chemicals. So hazard index is the measurement tool where you are going to assess the risk assessment. Hazard index is a culmination or a summation of different HQs. For example, HQ for DDT, HQ for dioxin, or HQ for PFAS, like that together, then it becomes hazard index. Okay, we'll discuss about hazard index in some other video, and I will try to give you some tables from the textbook only, risk assessment textbook, Springer textbook, which is given in ABT, you can read. And okay, uh, uh, thank you so much. Be curious. For any questions, you can always write a mail to arya.priyanka18@gmail.com. All the best for your exam.